Hey, I'm back, and with me, another speed art. This one is a bad Ash from Army of Darkness. So I uploaded the evolution of Ash Williams and the other heroes from the Evil Dead to my channel not long ago, and for it I had to watch the entire Evil Dead franchise. I had seen them all before in the past, but this is the first time I had watched them all the way through in order, including Ash vs. the Evil Dead and the 2013 movie, plus the newly released Evil Dead Rise. So since it's still fresh in my mind, let's rank up all of the Evil Dead franchise, including the TV series, right now. And just a quick note, I really don't think this franchise has a bad entry, only entries that are great or amazing. So something being lower on my ranking isn't really me saying it's bad, it's just that something had to be lower, so with that out of the way, let's get to it. At number 6 is Evil Dead 2013. This being at number 6 doesn't mean that I don't like this movie. This is actually a really good, tight horror movie. It has none of the campiness or cheesiness as the earlier, first 3 of the trilogy or Ash vs. the Evil Dead TV series. So I think that kind of threw me off a little bit when I first saw it, because I was kind of expecting that Ash Williams from the second and the third movie. But what you get here is a taut horror thriller, which is really non-stop. Once the book is opened, things just happen, and it's just horrifying. Even the opening cold open, which doesn't come back around, but nonetheless, I still think that it's a really tight opening. And then once you get to the characters at the cabin, you actually care about the characters quite a bit. They're a little bit more fleshed out than the 1981 film, and even the Evil Dead 2 and probably Army of Darkness, which they kind of have to be in a modern movie setting. People expect more from movies now, and you can't just be painting things in broad strokes. But nonetheless, I think this film is actually really good, and people should check it out. Coming in at number 5 is The Evil Dead from 1981. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, you're putting the original at number 5? Man, you're crazy, dude. I'm not sure who I'm impersonating there. But anyways, yeah, I love the original Evil Dead. I think it's a really taut horror film. It's got a little bit of campiness, it's got a little bit of cheekiness, the camera work is amazing, and just all the Sam Raimi-isms are just awesome. Now where it kind of flounders a little bit for me is the characterization of some of the characters. Things just kind of happen and you don't really care too much about the characters, but you do end up caring about Ash Williams by the end of it, as you see him transform from this meek, kind of loser-like character into the reluctant hero. Although he's still not quite Ash Williams. I think when people think about Ash Williams, they're thinking about Army of Darkness or maybe the end of Evil Dead 2. They're not really thinking about this bull-headed character who's too afraid to chop up somebody. Nonetheless, what Sam Raimi was able to do with a very low budget and more or less just filming with actors that were his friends or just his family, I think is quite amazing. And watching it now, you have to take that stuff into account. And yeah, sure, it's a little campy, sure, it's a little cheesy, maybe not purposely so, but I think it's just a fun watch. And it's such a perfect stepping stone to get into the series. And even if you don't want to watch this one, you can kind of skip it and just go straight to Evil Dead 2, because they do a 7-minute recap of this movie, but they cut out some of the unnecessary characters. But I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you skip this one. This is a piece of horror history here, and I think it deserves its recognition as such. Number 4 is Ash vs. Evil Dead. Now this is kind of the Ash that people think about when they're thinking about Ash Williams. The kind of cocky, comedic, sort of he's not even a reluctant hero, but he's kind of like a coward, but he's also brave. He's kind of like a bunch of juxtapositions. I think this series is perfect for what it is. It kind of makes you care about these side characters as much as you do about Ash Williams himself, which is crazy. Because when Pablo and Kelly are first introduced, I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna like these characters. They're gonna try to shoehorn them in. But by the end of the second episode, I'm like, I care about these characters quite a bit, and I hope that they stay in for the rest of the series. And for the most part, they do. And I think the story here, obviously they have to flesh out the book, they gotta flesh out the characters a little bit more, because they have way more time with each season. You got about 15 hours worth of content to fill out here. I think they do a great job with everything. It's comedic, it's scary, the effects are great, and there's not really many episodes that I'm kind of upset that I watched. Sure, there are some that are a little bit worse than others, but for the great that this show brought, I think it's well worth watching. I'm not sure where this show is streaming. I know it was on Netflix for a little while. Obviously it debuted on Starz, which I think was probably the death nail that this series got as soon as it was renewed with Starz. Although they allowed them to make the series that they wanted to make, and that's why they went with them. So I'm kind of glad that Starz helped them make this series, because I think other places like Netflix or Prime or whoever would have been like, no, you can't make it this violent. No, you can't make it this stupid. But they were just allowed to do whatever they wanted. And even Sam Raimi, I believe, directed the pilot episode. And all the episodes kind of imitate his style a little bit. So you kind of get that Sam Raimi-isms. And sure, it gets a little bit more sci-fi near the end. and a little bit more wacky and stuff. And you know, I think the third season is probably the weakest link of the entire series. But to me, I think it's almost a near perfect series. And it's worth it just to see Bruce Campbell again as the character, and that might be his last time that he's doing it on screen. I know that he provided the voices for all of his Ash Williams in the recent video game, and I've heard talks that they might be doing an animated series, which would be pretty cool, and you know, he'd probably return for that, I believe. But this might be the last time we get live action Ash Williams. For that, it's worth it just to watch the entire way through. So if you can get your hands on this series, definitely give it a watch. And coming in at number 3 is Evil Dead 2, Electric Boogaloo. This is probably another one where people are going to be like, how is this not number 1? Or not number 2 at least. Like, it's called Evil Dead 2, it has to at least be number 2, and don't get me wrong, this is probably the perfect Evil Dead film to show somebody who's never seen the original series, and you want to like kind of get them into it. Because it kind of has like the best of both worlds. You get a little bit of the comedy, Three Stooges style stuff that Bruce Campbell does, and you get a little bit of that classic horror and the Sam Raimi isms, the camera work, just all that amazing stuff. So why is it number 3? Just something had to be number 3, and this one I think has a little bit of the same problems as the original one, where like the characters aren't as fleshed out as they could be, and because it's kind of putting its foot in a little bit of horror and a little bit of comedy, like it's not really doing pure comedy and it's not really doing pure horror. So it's just kind of like, you know, it's a little bit of the best of both worlds, but at the same time you might want a little bit more comedy or a little bit more straight horror. But again, this is an amazing film. The effects work is awesome. Acting that Bruce Campbell's doing, the guy deserved an Oscar for this movie, even if it's like a very cheesy kind of campy performance. And he knows what he's doing here. I think this film is just a testament to like what you can do with a sequel with a larger budget. And even though this wasn't as big a box office success as the first movie, I don't know why, but either way, this is a great movie and you need to check it out. If you don't want to watch the first one, you can jump right into this one if you want. You'll be missing out on some stuff, but you know what? If you just want to jump into the series, you don't have all the time in the world, you can start with Evil Dead 2 and then watch Army of Darkness, and if you want to watch the follow-up movies after that, go ahead, and the follow-up TV series. But yeah, this is an amazing movie, and it deserves to be number 1, but it's number 3. For me. At number 2 is the latest film, Evil Dead Rise. Now, is this one a little bit higher up because I was excited and this was like the first Evil Dead film that I've seen in theaters? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe in a year or two I'll do a re-ranking of this and it might be a completely different list. But right now, this is how I'm placing it, and I really liked Evil Dead Rise. I saw some people saying that maybe it was a little woke. I don't know how that would be woke. It just has a lot of female characters. Doesn't bother me at all. Either way, I really liked Evil Dead Rise. I thought the characters in it were really well written, even though it's like some of them don't have as much to do or to say as like maybe the 2013 film. But I really liked the family dynamic here. The mother, the 3 kids, and her sister. I thought they all did a really good job in their roles. I thought the effects work on all of them when some of them start turning into deadites is probably some of the best the series has gotten. And I like the different like looking eyes that the characters have, the 3 main characters that turn into deadites from the family. I think that there's a lot of good stuff going on here. And it kind of ties together the 2013 remake and the original series all together, saying that there's 3 different books that you see in Army of Darkness. I think that's an interesting idea to like kind of throw into this series, that they're all kind of connected. Now, the lead here is Beth. She's maybe not as memorable as Mia from the 2013 film, and she's definitely not as memorable as Ash Williams, but she's exactly what this film needed. And you really do care about her niece, Cassie, and you do want to see her survive the familial monster mash, which is how I think I scripted it in the animation, and that's TM by me. I was trying to figure out a way to like condense what's going on in this film to like a 3-word thing. I was like, familial monster mash. I think this film is amazing, and if it's still in theaters near you, I'm not sure if it is, but if it is, go check it out. It's also on streaming if you want to pay a premium for it. Like I think it's $20 or $15 or whatever to watch it right now at home. I think you should definitely check this film out, and I hope that they do more Evil Dead films. Like I think they mentioned like they want to do one like every 3 years or something, which I think would be too much for this series. I think what they should do is just every 10 years or so, just have another Evil Dead film. Well, maybe like every 5 years. Like it doesn't have to be like a Conjuring style universe or a Saw franchise. Just like sprinkle in another Evil Dead film every now and then. And I think that will make me very, very happy. But coming in at number 1 is Army of Darkness. Now, a lot of people are gonna be like, this is number 1 for you? Major horror fans will probably have this one very low on their list because it's not really a horror film. There's nothing really scary in Army of Darkness. It's mostly dusty old skeletons and swashbuckling good times. But for like how this series goes, I just love how like crazy this film gets. And like, it is set up very well at the end of Evil Dead 2 that this is what's gonna have to happen, which I'm very surprised they didn't call this the Medieval Dead or Medieval Dead. I think the company producing it vetoed that name or something, so they went with Army of Darkness instead. I really like this film. I think like most of the comedy beats hit pretty well. I think a lot of the effects work, especially on like the Bad Ash, who I'm drawing right now, and all the skeletons are all really good. They're all very like throwback to like early 1930s stop motion style skeletons, and like just that style of movie. 1960s or 50s, I don't remember what year these movies came out. Clash of the Titans, maybe that was the 70s or the 80s. I can't remember these things. It's just like very much of a throwback to that style of stuff that Sam Raimi grew up like loving. So you can tell that he like loved that stuff a lot and he wanted to put it into this film. And I just like kind of watching the first three as like a trilogy, obviously how it's probably supposed to be watched. And you just start out as a straight horror movie, and then it's like a horror comedy, and then it's a swashbuckling Pirates of the Caribbean style film. You just watch Ash Williams go from one character and he turns into this completely different character, and it's all supposed to take place within the same couple of days, which I think is just hilarious. So like watching those first three together and finishing with this, I always have such a good time with this. This is probably going to be more to my taste. I like kind of like the wacky comedy stuff. So like I love Gremlins 2 as a sequel compared to the first one. I like Critters 2 more than Critters 1. I like Friday the 13th Part 6 more than the final chapter, I believe. I like the more funny Freddy compared to the more evil Freddy. And I like Dawn of the Dead more than I like Night of the Living Dead. But either way, I think this film, for what it is exactly what a comedy swashbuckling Ash Williams story needs to be. And if you are into comedic, throwback, period pieces that have a little bit of horror in them, a little bit of swashbuckling, they have great special effects, you should definitely check out Army of Darkness. It is my favorite of the series, at least currently with this ranking. You know, like a couple years from now, this might be number 6 in my list, but right now, it's number 1. So what do you think of the Evil Dead franchise? Feel free to share your ranking down below, I'd love to take a look. And I'd also like to thank all my patrons, including the recently signed up Joseph Balash and Christopher Higgins. There's links to check out the latest animations on Tell It Animated down below. And until next time, I've been Aaron, and I'll tell you something later.